And meanwhile, the American public is looking at the consequences of Joe Biden's rule, and what they see is not good. They see social dissolution. They see an increasingly bad economy. It turns out that this was, in fact, the worst year in modern American history for the stock market. This was its worst year since 2008. The S&P 500 finished 2022 down 19.4%. There is no excuse for that, given the fact that we are out of the pandemic and have been out of the pandemic for quite a while right here. And all he had to do was sit by and shut up, and he didn't do any of that. And yet he's going to continue forward with his big ambitions. The backlash is going to be extreme. Economists are predicting a recession. We are going to see some new tax events taking place because of Democratic legislation in the last Congress. As the Wall Street Journal points out, Happy New Year, or if you're in business, unhappy new tax year, American employers are getting hit in 2023 with a variety of tax increases, even as the risk of recession rises along with interest rates. The tax hikes arrive for two reasons: provisions of the 2017 GOP tax reform that are phasing out, and big tax increases that passed as part of the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act. The Biden administration doesn't want to tell you this, so we thought we'd list the unmentionables. Capital expensing. The biggest business tax hit is the end of full immediate expensing for equipment. The 2017 tax reform spurred investment by letting businesses immediately deduct the full cost of hardware, like trucks and machines. But that policy is set to phase out. The maximum early deduction drops this year to 80%. It's going to continue to decrease now each year until it disappears in 2026. R&D expensing. That hit has already arrived. January 2022 marked the end of full expensing for corporate research and development, a benefit that began in 1954. Companies could previously deduct R&D spending from their next tax bill. Now they have to spread the deduction over several years. Interest expensing. The cap on the business interest deduction dropped last year when the formula changed to exclude amortization. This is justifiable as part of tax reform because the tax code shouldn't have a subsidy for debt over equity, but the timing now is really bad. In other words, all of these taxes, including a new corporate minimum tax, a stock buyback tax, right, all of this is going to impact the economy in really, really negative ways. One of the reasons why big banks are now predicting a recession, and they're also expecting that the Fed is going to have to pivot. According to the Wall Street Journal, more than 2/3 of the economists at 23 large financial institutions that do business directly with the Federal Reserve are betting the United States will have a recession in 2023. Two others are predicting a recession in 2024. The firms, known as primary dealers, are a collection of trading firms and investment banks that include companies like Barclays, Bank of America, TD Securities, and UBS. They cite a number of red flags. Americans are spending down their pandemic savings. The housing market is now in decline. Banks are tightening their lending standards. We expect a downturn in global GDP growth in 2022, led by recessions in both the U.S. and the Eurozone, according to PNB Paribas. The main culprit is the Federal Reserve, which has been raising rates for months to try to slow the economy and curb inflation. So the economy is likely to get worse. This is not going to stop the spending binge that our Congress is currently on. According to a brand new study out of the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, American fiscal policy is, quote, in permanent imbalance as current debt plus projected future spending outstrips future tax revenue, which means that the federal government budget is going to have to require, if we were to balance the books, a 30% spending cut or a 40% increase in taxes, according to dailywire.com. So things are likely to get worse. And Joe Biden, again, is not slowing down. He's going to continue to push this, and he's going to continue to enjoy his life. You'll notice that in the middle of the worst cold snap in decades in the United States, resulting in some actual deaths, Joe Biden was vacationing off in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and no one seemed to matter. And it didn't seem to matter to the media. The media didn't care, like one iota. So when Ted Cruz, in the middle of a cold snap in Texas, goes down to Cancun with his family, this is a national scandal. How dare he leave his state? By the way, he's a federal senator who has virtually no impact on the running of the state when it comes to energy policy. But Ted Cruz is a really, really bad guy. The president of the United States takes off in the middle of the worst cold snap in decades in the United States, where people are dying, to go to a warm place for a week and sleep in the sun because he's grandpa. And that's totally fine. Eric Adams, by the way, did the exact same thing. Hey, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, he actually left New York in the middle of this cold snap. The mayor is the executive of the city, right? He's not a senator. He's the mayor. He left also for the U.S. Virgin Islands. His excuse was he missed his mom, who died a couple of years ago, is my understanding. So if I miss my grandfather, do I just get to go on random vacations and abdicate my duties now? Is that the way this works? His excuse was, again, the sense of entitlement from Democrats who feel that the winds of history are at their back is really, really strong. Here's Eric Adams over the course of the break saying that he deserves his vacation.
So after 365 days of commitment to the city, I decided to take 2 days to reflect on mommy and to watch how you responded to my 2 days out of this city was really alarming. I deserve good work-life balance like you do. I bet you went on a vacation. I bet you have not broke 365 days in the city.
Unbelievable. I mean, truly, the level of self-absorption of the public officials is really an amazing, amazing thing. Okay, so as I've been saying the whole show, if this is the year of the backlash, if the backlash is coming, then that would require some sort of cohesiveness on the Republican side of the aisle. And here is where we run into a bit of trouble for the backlash theory, and that is that the Republicans are really bad at this. Republicans are, in fact, quite capable of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and so they're now having an idiotic fight today over whether or not Kevin McCarthy ought to be Speaker of the House. This is a fight with no consequences for the American people. Just going to put it out there, the American people don't care. They do not care one iota. The reason they don't care one iota is because with the Republicans holding a majority in the House, Joe Biden's legislative agenda ought to be DOA. It ought to be dead on arrival. There's not going to be a lot of legislation that gets done over the course of the next couple of years. All the Republicans have to do is plant their feet and say no. It does not matter who the Speaker is in order to do any of that. And so the people who are holding out, shouting at Kevin McCarthy, he can't be the Speaker because he's not committed enough. Then who else? And meanwhile, the people who are like, oh, I love Kevin McCarthy, it's got to be him. And Kevin McCarthy's a nice guy, but why? The answer is the American people don't care. They don't care. So the answer is whoever has the votes should become the Speaker. Kevin McCarthy has the most votes, so he should probably become the Speaker. Right now, we have an idiot fest in which we have like 5 or 6 Congress people who are basically holding up the works for no gain. Like, what exactly is the gain here? According to the Wall Street Journal, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy worked on Monday to lock down support to become House Speaker. His bid remained up in the air as some conservative lawmakers threatened to turn Tuesday's leadership vote into the most unpredictable in a century. Again, totally useless. There is no reason for this. Whether you like McCarthy, whether you don't like McCarthy, it does not matter. As the Speaker of the House, his entire job is to just say no to Joe Biden. You could put a dog in that seat, a dog with a sign that says no, and it would essentially do the same thing as what the Speaker of the House is going to do. The Speaker vote is set for midday. It comes after McCarthy spent the weekend scrambling to get the votes necessary from House Republicans to win the gavel. He acquiesced on a requested rules change that gives rank-and-file members more power, including making it easier to oust the Speaker, but a significant number of GOP lawmakers said they still remain opposed to the Californians' bid. One of those people is Representative Bob Good. He tried to explain why McCarthy was not going to get his vote.
Is there any scenario under which you could support and vote for Kevin McCarthy?
No, I won't be voting for Kevin McCarthy tomorrow. He's part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. I'll be following the will of my constituents, the voters of Virginia's 5th District, who hundreds of which have told me over the past couple of years not to support Kevin McCarthy.
But why? Like, who's the alternative? If there's like a great alternative waiting in the wings, I'm waiting to hear it. Who has the support of the majority caucus? Because here are the alternatives right now. Either the Republicans just spend the next month voting over and over and over, not for Kevin McCarthy, and then probably for Kevin McCarthy, because you have a bunch of Republicans in the House, some of whom I've talked to, who have said they're only voting for Kevin McCarthy just to stop this stuff. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it because we will be taking your calls on the very first broadcast day of the brand new year. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.